We all know sugar, we all eat sugar. We put sugar in our tea, we put sugar in our coffee, we make so many sweets out of the sugar. When that sugar is made in sugar factory, sugar cane or ganna is processed. When ganna or sugar cane is processed, you get sugar as a main product and you get molasses as a byproduct. That molasses is used to make alcohol afterwards. So sugar is a main product in this process and molasses is a byproduct. Similar thing happens in case of precedent. Precedent is also called as precedent. It is a very important doctrine in our syllabus. Hey everyone, welcome to Law Simple and Pure. I am your host Dr. Vaishali and today we are going to learn a very important doctrine or concept in our legal syllabus, and that is doctrine of precedent. This can be used under Article 141 of the Constitution of India. This can be used in the paper called jurisprudence, and again this can be used while explaining doctrine of precedent or doctrine of stare decisis in legal method. So stay tuned and understand this concept thoroughly. While writing your answer, follow this pattern. What we are going to cover in our answer sheet. Number 1, introduction. So in introduction, we are going to cover what is the doctrine of precedent in India. Second point we are going to cover is judicial hierarchy or judicial structure in India and doctrine of precedent. Third point which we are going to cover is constitutional status of doctrine of precedent. Point number 4 which we are going to cover is importance of doctrine of precedent and some disadvantages of the doctrine. Number 5 which we are going to cover is two parts of this precedent. Then we are going to study difference between these two parts, because question can be asked like what is the difference between this and this, or define this in a short note, and then we will conclude everything. So these are the points which we are going to follow while writing our answer sheet. Now let us begin with introduction. Precedent means a decision made by superior court will be binding on inferior or lower courts. So that is the meaning of precedent. It is also called as doctrine of stare decisis. It means let the decision stand. It means if a decision is given by judiciary, that decision will be followed by the subordinate courts in similar cases. So if cases are similar, then same decision which is given by upper judiciary will followed, and it means let the decision made by judiciary stand, and which means stare decisis. So if there is a question on doctrine of stare decisis, answer will be the same. If there is a question on doctrine of precedent, again answer will be the same. If there is a question on Article 141 of the Constitution of India, again your answer will be the same. Now, after covering introduction, we'll see judicial hierarchy and doctrine of precedent in India. As we know, we follow federalism. So we have a state government and we have a central government. So at center we have a central government, central legislature, and we have state legislature, right? In case of executive, we have a central executive or central government, and we have a state government. But in case of judiciary, it is hierarchical. Hierarchical means one below the other. So Supreme Court is at the apex level. Below Supreme Court there are different high courts of different states, and below high courts there are subordinate courts. So decision made by Supreme Court will be binding on high court. Decision made by high court will be binding on lower judicial bodies, okay? But decision made by one high court is not binding on other high court. It has a persuasive value. It means if the high court wants to go ahead with the decision of another high court, they are free to do that, but it is not binding. But decision made by Supreme Court is binding on all other lower courts within the territory of India. So that is the status of doctrine of precedent in India. So second point will be judicial hierarchy and precedent. And in that you can cover so many points. For example, a decision is given by Andhra Pradesh High Court. That decision is not binding on Karnataka High Court. If Karnataka High Court wants to follow the decision of Andhra Pradesh High Court, they are free to do that. It means those decisions are not binding. But if decision is made by Supreme Court of India, that is binding on Karnataka High Court and that is binding on Andhra Pradesh High Court. Now, whether Supreme Court is obliged to follow its own decision, right? So Supreme Court is also bound by its own previous decisions, and in case Supreme Court wants to overrule the previous decision, they have to constitute a higher judges bench. So if a decision is given by 3 judges bench, then Supreme Court has to constitute a 5 judges bench and they can overrule the case. Otherwise, that rule is binding on Supreme Court also. So that is a judicial hierarchy, and that is the status of doctrine of precedent or stare decisis. Next point, Constitution of India and doctrine of precedent. Whether doctrine of precedent is recognized by our constitution or whether doctrine of stare decisis has any constitutional status or not. So let us go through this point. Article 141 of the Constitution of India specifically provides that decisions made by Supreme Court will be binding on all other lower courts within the territory of India. It means doctrine of precedent is recognized under the Constitution of India by Article 141 of the Constitution. What is the importance of doctrine of stare decisis or doctrine of precedent? As you all know, in India, our law is basically based on British law. British law is based on case law, and that's why in Indian law we follow lots of British cases as well. So this doctrine came from common law. In common law, importance is given to judge-made law. You know that. And in civil law countries, more importance is given to legislation. So decisions or judicial intellect used in one case must be respected by other cases, so that judicial intellect or that judicial wisdom will not be wasted. So we got this doctrine from common law or from British law, because British law is totally a judge-made law. Okay, and we got this doctrine from British law. Now, what is the importance of this doctrine? Number one, it brings certainty in the system, that people, they can know that in similar cases, similar decision will be given. It avoids arbitrariness. Second importance of this doctrine provides detailed and easy to use rules made by the upper judiciary. So lower judiciary, they are just supposed to follow the rules made by upper judiciary in similar cases, and that's how it saves time of a court. Number three, it brings predictability. So parties are sure about the decision, that this and this are the facts, and in similar cases this and this decision was taken, so now this will happen in our case. So it brings predictability in the system. And number four, it makes the system more and more efficient. Now, what are the disadvantages of this doctrine of precedent? It curtails judicial activism to a great extent, because lower judiciary is supposed to follow decisions of upper judiciary, and that's why there is a very less scope for showing judicial activism. Example, in United States, as you know, it's a pure federalism. In India, we do not follow pure federalism. So India is a quasi-federal country, but US is a classic example of pure federalism. So in every state, they have a Supreme Court and then they have a High Court. And because of so many Supreme Courts, there is a lot of scope for judicial activism, and that's why American legal realism came from USA. Why? Because there is a lot of scope for showing that judicial activism. So at a state level also, judges can show their activist approach. Every time you do not have to wait for a decision of Supreme Court. So in India, that activism is curtailed because of the strict application of doctrine of precedent. So that is one of the disadvantage. Do you know, when I was taking one lecture in one of the law colleges in Maharashtra, one student asked me, "Ma'am, don't you think that we have more high courts in India, like more benches, so that we can also show some activism?" And I totally agreed with his opinion. So next point we are going to cover is two parts of the doctrine of precedent. As I told you, while making sugar, you get sugar as a main product and you get molasses as a byproduct. Similarly, in case of doctrine of precedent, you get two products. One is a main product and one is a byproduct, and that they are the two parts of doctrine of precedent. We all know wheat, which is also called as gehu. So when you make wheat flour out of wheat, you get bran or rough part of that wheat as a byproduct. So wheat flour is used by human beings, which is a main product, and that rough part or barn is used as an animal feed, which is very good or nutritious for animals. right? So we got one main product and one byproduct. While processing sugarcane, we got sugar as a main product and molasses as a byproduct. Similarly, every decision has two parts. One is the main part of that decision, which is called as ratio decidendi, and second part, or which is a byproduct of that decision, is called as obiter dicta. When judiciary decides certain matters, first facts are discussed, and after that all the law points come in picture and discussions on those law points happen. So when one point is in issue, a decision is given on that. But some ancillary issues are also there, or while thinking, judiciary goes to some other areas and they make their opinion about those areas, and those are called as obiter dicta. It is also called as obiter dictum. So this is sugar and this is molasses. So main part or main product of a decision making and byproduct of a decision making in simple words. So sugar is our ratio decidendi or ratio decidendi, and molasses is a byproduct which is also called as obiter dicta. Next point, what is the difference between ratio decidendi and obiter dicta? Ratio decidendi or ratio decidendi is the governing part or main part of a decision. To explain this point further, I would like to give an example of S.R. Bommai's case. In that case, issue was whether secularism is a part of basic structure or not. In that case, it was provided by Supreme Court that secularism is a part of basic structure. So that is the governing part or main part of the decision. But in the same case, it was provided by court that socialism or fraternity is also a part of basic structure. So issue was not whether socialism or fraternity is a part of basic structure, but it came as the ultimate output of the decision, and that's why it is a part of obiter dicta, because it is a non-governing part of the decision, because it has nothing to do with the case. The question which was asked in the case was whether secularism is a part of basic structure or not. Okay, so that is the main part or governing part of the decision. Second difference, ratio decidendi precisely relates to the case because it is a main part of discussion of a certain case, while obiter dicta, they do not precisely relate to a case, they are a byproduct of that case. Next thing, ratio decidendi is a main part of the decision and it is binding on all other lower judicial bodies, while obiter dictum or obiter dicta, they are not binding on lower courts, but they have a persuasive value. It means if lower judiciary wants to follow them, they are free to follow. Okay, so they are non-binding. Next thing, ratio decidendi is necessary in reaching a decision. Without ratio, you cannot make a decision. But obiters, they are not necessary. You can talk about obiters or you cannot talk about obiters. So it is a part of judicial activism. Whether judiciary wants to explore in this area or not, it depends upon the judicial intellect. So that's why they are non-necessary in a decision making. A decision can be reached without obiters because they are just judicial remarks relating to a particular case. Okay, so that is the difference between ratio decidendi and obiter dicta. You can provide S.R. Bommai's case relating to secularism. So, and then we will conclude that in India, doctrine of precedent or doctrine of stare decisis is followed. Meaning, and everything you can provide now. You can give an example of sugar, sugarcane, sugar and molasses. Then judicial hierarchy and precedent. Then Constitution of India and precedent. Then importance and disadvantages or advantages and disadvantages of the doctrine. Then two parts of this doctrine of precedent. One by one explain everything. And now, next point, jurisprudential status of doctrine of precedent. This doctrine is respected by American legal realism. Okay, so American legal realism respects doctrine of precedent. This doctrine is followed in United States, it is followed in Canada, it is followed in UK, it is followed in India. So all the common law countries, they follow doctrine of precedent. Okay, and American legal realism respected it. Origin of this doctrine is there in common law. So provide all these points in your conclusion. So that's it about this. If you want me to talk more about doctrine of precedent or some more details about Article 141, please leave a comment. It would be my pleasure to help you in this area. So stay tuned till my next lecture. Goodbye and good luck.